Hook in the late 1700s, the island of Hong Kong was still just a quiet, wild edge of the Qing Empire. Hook it was mostly fishing villages and pirate hideouts, part of the busy Pearl River Delta trading scene. Hook, this rocky spot, really got its identity from its connection to the big trading city of Canton. Hook it offered a safe haven for sailors traveling the tricky waters of the South China Sea. Hook, the whole island was shaped by the monsoon winds. Hook, the salt trade. Hook, and the constant push and pull between Beijing's rule Hook and the independent seagoing groups on the southern coast. Hook, during this time, Hook Hong Kong was on the verge of a huge change. Hook that would eventually turn this barren rock Hook into a major crossroads for world powers. Hook, the world outside these shores was changing fast. Hook, as European businesses started pushing hard. Hook against the Qing dynasty's closed-door policies. Hook, the clash between the old imperial way of life. Hook and the new era of international trade. Hook was straining the region's social fabric to its limit. Hook setting the stage for a colonial encounter. Hook that would forever change Asia's future. Hook, in this series, we're using modern AI tools. Hook, along with old maps, sea charts. Hook, and classic ink paintings to bring Hong Kong back to life. Hook as it was before the British arrived. Hook, by combining these historical records. Hook, we can explore places. Hook, that cameras never captured. Hook, traveling through the bays. Hook, villages and mountain paths just as people in the 1700s saw them. Hook, our aim isn't just to look back, but to step into the past, to wander the narrow Hook streets of Stanley, stand on the heights of Victoria Peak, before the fancy houses. Hook, and sail into a harbor full of traditional junk boats instead of skyscrapers. Hook, if you stick with us to the end, we'll span 3 centuries by putting these Hook recreated scenes over today's skyline. We'll return to these exact spots. Hook in the present day to see what time has erased and what pieces of the 18th century spirit. Hook still remain under the modern city's glass and steel. Hook, our journey begins on the water body where the real life of 1700s Hong Kong thrived. The Pearl River Delta was a maze of silt and salt, a watery highway where the boat people lived their whole lives on wooden decks. To the Qing body officials far up north, these seafaring folks were seen as outsiders. Body, yet they were the true rulers of this landscape. Looking out over the harbor of Body, what we now call Aberdeen, or Shek Pai Wan, the air was thick with the smell of body drying fish and the sweet smoke from little shrines on the front of boats. Body, these boats weren't just for getting around. They were floating homes, piled high with body nets, cooking gear, and the constant rhythm of oars dipping into the salty water. Body moving inland towards the village of Stanley, then known as Chek Zoo, we find a different body way of life. Its name, meaning red pillar, comes from the bright flowers of the silk body cotton trees scattered across the land. Here, the homes were simple but tough. Body made with granite walls and tiled roofs, built to survive the powerful seasonal typhoons. Body, the paths were unpaved, winding between small groves of incense trees. Body, whose fragrant sap was one of the few valuable things the region produced. Body, this is how it got the name Fragrant Harbor. Body farmers worked terraced fields on the hillsides. Body coaxing a living from the thin, slightly acidic soil. Body, while smoke from cooking fires drifted up towards the peaks. Body that were always hidden in a shroud of mist. Body, as the 18th century went on. Body, the harbor's importance became impossible to overlook. Body, the deep, protected waters between the island and the mainland. Body offered a perfect resting place for the enormous tea clippers and opium ships. Body that would soon become a common sight. Body, in those years, though, the biggest danger wasn't a foreign navy. Body, but the infamous pirate fleets of the South China Sea. Body, the notorious Chiang Ai-sao and her red flag fleet led hundreds of ships and tens of thousands of sailors. Body basically running a shadow government that taxed every coastal village. Body standing on the southern cliffs of the island. Body, you might have seen the daunting sight of a pirate fleet appearing through the fog. Body, a clear sign that in this era, body power was often judged by how many cannons you had on deck. Body not by the orders of an emperor. Body, the social hub of these communities, was the Tin Hao Temple, dedicated to the sea goddess. Body, these buildings were the anchors of the spiritual world. Inside, the light was dim, filtered through thick clouds of sandalwood smoke. Heavy bronze bells and ornately carved wooden altars. Body told the stories of sailors who survived rough seas. Body and merchants who found success. Body, the temple, was more than just a place to pray. Body, it was a community center where disagreements were resolved. Body, and news from the mainland was shared. Body, outside the temple entrance. Body, the village square, acted as a bustling market. Body, where the land's bounty met the sea's catch. Body salt, gathered from the nearby marshes on Lantau Island. Body was traded for grain. Body, while traveling storytellers would share epic tales of the three kingdoms. Body, to a captivated crowd of workers and children. Body, by the end of the 1700s, Body, the conflict between the Qing government and the British East India Company was growing. Body, the Canton system confined all foreign trade to a small area in Guangzhou. Body, but London's craving for Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain was endless. Body, Hong Kong, being so close to the river's mouth, became a silent observer of this Body intensifying economic struggle. Body ships started to hang around longer in the outer waters, their captains staring at the deep harbor with Body a mix of annoyance and ambition. The island's peaceful isolation was being Body worn away by the pull of global markets. We see the first signs of this shift in the increased Body presence of imperial coastal forts, armed with old cannons that looked out at a horizon. Body that was no longer empty. The island's landscape itself was a sharp contrast to the lush Body gardens of Suzhou or the grand avenues of Beijing. It was a world of granite and scrub, Body of steep gullies and hidden waterfalls. Climbing to the island's high ridges offered a Body breathtaking view of the entire island chain. From this vantage point, you could see the intricate web of Body trade routes, connecting the delta to the rest of the world. To the west lay Lantau, dominated by the Body peaks and monasteries that provided a spiritual escape from the busy coastal life. Up north, mountains of the new territories stretch out towards the mainland. In these lands, the Panti and Hakka people's village clans kept their walled cities strong, to defend their homelands from raiders and rivals. As the sun dips below the horizon in the 1700s harbor, the sky turns a deep purple, mirroring on the still water. Lanterns on the junk boats light up one by one, creating a galaxy of flickering lights across the bay. It feels incredibly peaceful, but in just a few decades, the first sounds of the Opium Wars will boom through these hills. The Treaty of Nanjing will be signed, and the British flag will be raised at possession point. The small fishing villages will be demolished to make room for the stone warehouses of Jardine Matheson and the colonial government buildings of Victoria City. The incense trees will be felled, and the terraced farms will be covered over by the foundations of a global financial center. Now, returning to the present day, we're standing on the same shore where the tanker people once repaired their fishing nets. The sea has been pushed back significantly by massive land reclamation projects, where waves used to crash. Today, you'll find the underground tunnels of the MTR and the incredibly tall International Finance Center. The peaceful sounds of the 18th century coast, like the creaking of wooden ships and the cries of seabirds, have been drowned out by the loud noise of traffic and the constant buzz of millions of people on the move. Yet, if you look really closely, you can still see the original landscape. The steepness of the streets in Central follows the exact same routes that woodcutters used to climb up the mountain. The Tin Hao temples, now tucked away between towering buildings, are still lively centers of tradition, with incense smoke still rising to the same goddess who looked after the sailors back in the 1700s. Hong Kong's story is all about constant change, a pattern of breaking down and rebuilding that started way before the very first skyscraper was built. By piecing together this forgotten century, we realize the city's identity was never set in stone. It was always a place defined by movement, by people who arrived by sea, hoping for a fresh start. The rugged island we see in these pictures is the base upon which the modern wonder was built, a reminder that even the most solid-looking structures in our world today are just the newest layer in a history that keeps unfolding, flowing just like the tides of the fragrant harbor. What city or time period should we bring back to life next?